Hey everyone, it's Katie from Moonflower Moments. I'm here today to do a video response to Chanel Days' video end of year tarot tag. And I think that she's done this like in previous years before, but I'm going to use the prompts that I found under her 2024 version. And so she has 13 prompts. I felt like they covered a lot of different topics, and so I thought it would be fun to do with y'all. So the first prompt is, what was your most used deck of 2024? And I think if you've been on my channel before, you probably know that it's William Blake. I have to hold myself back from including him in every video, and I'm honest God, pretty proud when I don't talk about him. But when I was preparing for this video, I asked my husband, I said, what do you think was my most used deck of 2024? And he said, what do I think or what do I know? Because I know it was William Blake. And I was like, damn, you were totally right. And the sad thing is, like, I try to put William Blake up and then he just ends up coming back out. And so I think that this deck and I were meant to really connect this year. I always love this deck. It has always been a staple in my collection, but this year I just started noticing more and more things about it. So for example, I'm absolutely obsessed with the fact that we have like this image framed in the middle. So because this is taken from William Blake's old artwork, I think that some of the images were cut, like cropped, and then a background was applied to it to make it fit on a card. But I think it's really interesting to see which cards have this kind of box around them and which ones don't. So this is the Chariot for experience, and I think it's really interesting because to me the Chariot is like the most like self-centered card in the deck. It's very me focused. I'm going out on my own for the first time looking for those victories, so your perspective is very like boxed in. You don't have enough experience to see from others' points of view yet, and I think that that's a really cool way to bring that interpretation in. This is the Lightning, which is the Tower. And I think it's really cool that we have like this boxed in as well, like this very chaotic image. And so it kind of reminds me about how sometimes like with the Tower, we're kind of boxed into our own perspective, and so we're not able to see our way out of a negative situation. So even, I have to talk about this one too. So of course this is transformation, and you can tell these people are like kind of being swept away by death. Some of them are really grieving the loss, and it's almost like they're trying to hold this person back. But if we have this frame here where we really are able to see that they're gaining their wings and they're trying to fly away. So the purpose of this image is not to focus so much on the grief, but on the transformation of that. And I think it's cool. You know, I think that like if you've used a deck almost every single day for an entire year and you're still finding new things about it, then that's a deck that 1000% needs to be in your collection. And it's beautiful. I mean, we have forgiveness right here for temperance, a totally different outlook. I'll talk about this one and then I swear I'll move on, I promise. But I think that when it comes down to it, forgiveness is the state between hurt and contentment, you know, being content again. Just like temperance is the state between death, like a physical death, and the rest of what's to come within the major arcana, which is a spiritual new beginning, you know, a transformation in that sense. And so I like that this is like a middle ground. It gives me something juicy to work on. So you can probably hear it in my voice, the love that I have for this deck, and it's just endlessly my favorite. So that would be my most used tarot deck of the year. I used it for anything and everything all the time. It was my go-to. Okay, so next would be my least used decks of the year. The prompt says one, but I'm going to talk about two. The first one that was my least used deck is the Nocturnal Garden Lenormand. It's a shame that I did not use this deck really this year because I love the artwork and I think it goes along very well with many of my decks that I own. But I'm not a Lenormand reader, and I thought that this year I was going to study Lenormand. I thought I was going to get it under my belt. I thought I was going to just really engage with this different system. But I did find that my practice shifted pretty dramatically in 2024 in terms of reading informational text and like studying things. So I'm still reading a lot of fiction, but I haven't really felt the fortitude to want to study. And I think that that's interesting. I'm still taking in new information about tarot, but I'm starting to shift to where I'm really learning more about tarot from talking to other tarot readers and watching other tarot readers read than reading the source material myself. So it might be more beneficial for me to watch other people read with the Lenormand. I think that would be fun because I think that's the space where I'm at right now. So I think that it is not the deck's fault by any means. I think it's just where I've been at because, I mean, I love these cute little mice. You know, these kites have wings. It reminds me of Harry Potter. There's so many good things about this deck. So I don't think it's the deck's fault. I think it's me. So we will be coming back around to each other soon. The other one that I barely used this year, and by barely, I mean I used it one time 2 days ago and loved the reading I got from it, but other than that, I did not use it, is going to be my Golden Renaissance Tarot. I have a few reasons why I didn't use this deck very much, but I'll be brief with it. I think aesthetically, it does bother me a little bit. So this is called the Astensi Tarot. I think I'm saying that right. There you go. But it also goes by Golden Tarot of the Renaissance. I don't know which one's like the more popular name, but it's a deck that was recreated from an older deck. And so when the creator was asked by Lo Scarabeo to create this deck, they were pulling a lot from like old source material, but they also had to draw their own images. And I'm not sure which ones the creator drew or which ones like they did from like existing artwork, but there's a bit of a disconnect in some of the cards for me in terms of artwork styles that really makes it kind of disconcerting to use. And I never thought I would be that person to be like upset if by like the internal consistencies, but I just can't shake them necessarily within this deck. So I'm going to show you an example because like the High Priestess really bothers me, so I'm going to go find her. So we have the High Priestess, we have the Justice card, and then these are just like two minors. And I just feel like, I don't know if it's because the creator had to like redraw some of these images, but like I feel like these art styles are just very different than this. And maybe it's because they're majors, so they are meant to like take up more of the image. I'm not sure, but like there's enough of a disconnect to where I just don't really reach it the way that I wish I would. With that being said, because it is a Lo Scarabeo deck, it definitely goes its own way in so many different departments. I mean, so many different departments. Like the guidebook is I don't know what system it's based in, but it's maybe it's based in nothing. I have no idea. Like, I'm not trying to be rude or disrespectful, but it is definitely one of the wildest Lo Scarabeo guidebooks I've ever read. Like one of the cards, for example, refers to like cleaning. And I'm like, that is so interesting. I've never heard of anything like that with tarot. So with that being said, I did a reading the other day and I was having mixed feelings about a certain situation. And I pulled like the Ten of Swords, and most people think that the Ten of Swords essentially means like the ending, the closing of something, but usually it does signify defeat because you're dead with all the swords in you. And this particular card in the guidebook had talked about difficult victories. And so that I thought it was cool that you can have a card that is like traditionally negative, but then also has like a positive kind of spin on it. And so I'm going to use this deck when I need additional perspectives, when I'm feeling like I can hold multiple conflicting perspectives at once, and I need a deck to support me through that cognitive dissonance. So I think I found a use for it. We're gonna see. So hopefully it won't be the same deck that I show next year, because most of the year this deck really plagued me and I wasn't using it the way that I wanted to. And so we are just gonna see what comes next year. Okay, so what is a deck that is not my usual style? That's going to be the next one, and for that one I have chosen the Inner Child cards. This was a beautiful addition to my practice in 2024. Such a beautiful addition. I love these cards. They're very heartfelt. Because they're so big, it feels almost as if like you're a child and you're interacting with things again that are so much larger than you. It really puts you in that perspective of being that kid again. And this deck supported me through some very serious times this year where I had to go back in my childhood and my teenagehood and kind of unearth some things I had been holding back. And so I'm thankful that I took a chance on this. I think I was just watching someone's tarot channel one day and I had seen this deck before, but I truly think that sometimes decks call to you during particular points in your life. And I know that this one did for me, and instantly when I saw it, it felt like I couldn't wait. Like I had to get the deck. So I think that this was the deck that called to me the hardest this year of no, it needs to come in. You don't have anything like this. And I've seen decks like, for example, the Zoomies Tarot and Playful Hearts and other decks that have like this kind of childlike innocence, but I think this is the one for me. So Inner Child Tarot was the deck that I kind of took a chance on. It was definitely a deck that's not my usual style. So beautiful, so gorgeous. I love that the swords are butterflies as well. Y'all know I'm a butterfly girl. Got my butterfly tattoo just a few days ago, so we're rocking and rolling. That's definitely my spiritual animal. So I think my favorite deck pairing, I showed a lot on my channel. I definitely showed Under the Oak a lot, and I definitely showed Tarot Landscapes a lot. So I'll leave a link in the description box below to one of the videos where I showed that, and I'll leave it in the description box. But my other favorite pairing, I had to think a little bit about this, was I believe my Prairie Majesty Oracle. So thanks to Tarot Magpie for showing this off on their channel, because they're definitely the reason I have it, and Terra. So I pair decks all the time, but I'm not someone who really gets like attached to particular pairings. I like to build deck families. So oftentimes it's hard for me to identify like a favorite pairing, because I might use a pairing and like really love it and then not come back to it for like 6 months, and that's how I am. I pair decks, but because I build families, like the family dynamics are always kind of like constantly like shifting and moving a little bit. And so I think that this was one of the decks that like this pairing blew me away, because I used it for so damn long, and I'm still using it. I still have cards on my Oracle, like cards from both the Oracle and the Tarot sitting out on my altar right now for me to use. I like that there's like this like very like well-written question on Prairie Majesty, because it gives me a footwork into interpreting some of these cards, because while the majors are fully illustrated, you can tell that the minors are pips. So it gives me a little bit more room to see the deck from a different angle. Since Terra Botanical is my favorite deck, it was the first deck that I ever owned. I know y'all are tired of hearing me say that. I think when it comes down to it, sometimes we need like an oracle deck to kind of revitalize our relationship with a tarot, and I think that Prairie Majesty has been able to do that for me, because it's given me the opportunity to see things in Terra that I hadn't seen before. This deck pairing is perfect for like the colder months, because I'm still able to engage with my nature-based practices, but when it comes down to it, because it's mostly black and white, it feels like it's time to rest. And so this pairing has been encouraging me to do that, to rest and recognize that the earth is sleeping just like I am from all of this heavy black. I think it's a beautiful pairing, so I just had to share it. So that's probably my favorite pairing of the year, other than the other one that I will leave in the link below. Now the next one is I actually got out of order at the prompts, but that's okay. The next one that I'm going to do, because I skipped it earlier, is going to be my newest deck in my collection, and that is my Symbolic Soul Tarot. So this was gifted to me by a viewer, so thank you so much. I'm so grateful to have met so many people within this community, and so I'm just like endlessly grateful. So thank you. So this is Symbolic Soul, and the viewer told me that she felt like this was up my alley, and I think she was completely, totally, and absolutely right. So I love decks that are a little bit strange. I've already confessed, quote unquote, before that I really like Los Scarabeo decks, and like, even though, like I said before, like the Golden Tarot, the Renaissance, the guidebook's just like a little bit too strange for me to like really get under. The guidebook for this one was written by Barbara Moore, and so you know that it's coming at tarot from a unique perspective, but a very like rich perspective. And so the little bit that I've tapped into the guidebook has absolutely totally floored me, and so I think that that's a massive strength within this deck. But this deck almost kind of feels like alien people, and so it's kind of good for like this type of year. Like I feel like it's a little bit uncanny and it's a little bit weird and it's a little bit strange, and like these people are kind of knocking on the door saying, hey, here's another perspective for us to bring to you. For the longest time I was scared to bring another black and white deck into my collection because I didn't want it to compete with Terra Botanical, but as you can see, those two decks are completely different, so I don't think that that's going to be a problem at all for me as I'm bonding with this deck. So this is my most recent deck that came in. And it's cool, it's weird, it's strange. It's really good for daily draws. So I've been using it probably for like the last week or so, pulling cards before work and getting some messages that are incredibly spot on. So I look forward to using it more. I really love it. The next prompt is my favorite deck mod, and it actually was to this deck. So I have to go back over with black, but I did edge this deck in black. My Terra Botanical was also edged in black. My Prairie Majesty, I also edged that one in black, though this one I need to kind of go over with another coat. But I just think there's something about like a deck that has like black borders. It's got to be edged in black. And so this year was the first year that I ever did any deck moddings, and I felt really successful about the ones that I've done in black. But that prompt also gives you room to talk about your favorite tarot accessory. So I have to show what my friend made me. She made me this little tarot bag, and it's a little Satsuma. So part of my tattoo that I recently got was a Satsuma, which for those of you who don't know, it's a Satsuma orange. They're really commonly grown in Louisiana, though they're not native from here. And she made me like these little leaves. I'm pretty sure my cat did that. It's so hard to own a cat like with tarot bags, it really is. But I'm gonna get her to fix that. But for the most part, it's just like this cute little Satsuma, and it just fits my deck perfectly. I have my pocket archetypes in here, and it just like slides in, and it's a nice like snuggly home. So I love that. I almost forgot about that one. Not because I would ever forget about something someone made for me, but I was like, ooh, deck mod, let me show the black borders. My husband was like, nope, you got to show the Satsuma. So shout out to him for that. So next is going to be my favorite card backs. I know for a fact this has shown up in other people's channel, but I couldn't think of anything else, and why would I think of anything else? I have to pull my Herbcrafters from this. I love this deck so much. This is a deck that continually stays on my altar upstairs. I use it a lot before work, but like all of this is so very me. And so I love just like even the background. Like I would put this as wallpaper on my wall without a doubt. It is so incredibly me. So I'll show a few of the front images just in case you haven't seen this already. I get a lot of value out of working with the guidebook for this one, because sometimes the images are a little bit too small and detailed for me to like fully see what's happening in the artwork. But as I have read the guidebook and read the guidebook and read the guidebook, I've started to notice things in the artwork that I typically wouldn't. And so for that, I do find it really valuable. But this is an important deck for me to have upstairs. I only pull from this deck when I feel like I need to, and so that could be like once every 2 weeks. Sometimes it's like once a month, but I really get to know these cards very innately, and I feel like they're very magical cards. I love that the courts are renamed to have all women, so it has like a femininity that is grounded that I really love. I love it. So it definitely is my favorite deck for backs. I know other people have seen it, but I mean, shout out to them. They did a great job. I believe that was US Games. And I don't know who the creator is. Let's look at the guidebook. There we go. So on to the next. So the next is a deck with a great theme. This is brand new to my collection too. This is Land of the Giants by Stephen Hutton. And I bought this because I thought it would go well with my Dream Enchantress, and it does. But I want to show you even another deck it goes better with. So before I get to that, let me explain what this deck is. So I'm actually going to show you the guidebook for it, because I think it beautifully describes the meaning of this oracle. So it says, abandoned in the 1950s, Whitworth Hall in northern England remains uninhabited this day, by people that is. With the humans gone, the small folk emerged and took the hall as their own. Mystified by the decorative door handles throughout, they named the hall Lockhart. For Lockhart's otherworldly residents, the corridors, chambers, furniture, and relics left behind in decaying splendor truly represent the land of the giants. And like you even have like a little image here of what the house looks like. And so these little spirits are going around and exploring this house for the first time. So it reminds me quite a bit of that new deck by Three Trees, the Heartwood Tarot. I believe that's what it's called. I don't own that deck, but it seems to kind of fit the same theme. And I'm very madly in love with thinking about how the smaller creatures and critters would interpret our human civilization. That's intriguing to me. Like, I do spend a lot of time thinking about the smaller critters that live in my garden and like how vast and big everything must look to them. And so I think that this deck has that theme, but instead of it being in the garden, a lot of it is like inside of the house. So it's just another layer to that way of thinking about perspective that is home-based, that I think is really appropriate for this type of year. So this is my deck with a great theme, and I want to show you what it matches really well with, because I can't say this is my favorite pairing of the year because I haven't used it yet, but fresh out the box, I feel like Witch Sisters would go along well with this. So I'd like to show you a little match because I've never seen anyone pair these together. So if you have these two decks, this might be worth exploring, and I'm sure I'll talk more about it later. There we go. So I was thinking that the color tones would look really nice together. The Witch Sister is brighter in some ways than the Land of the Giants Oracle, but the Land of the Giants still has a lot of these colors in the background that I thought would make it fit. And I imagine that many of these women in Witch Sisters would absolutely be very well aware of the little spirits of the world. So I feel like they would acknowledge them and they would want to respect them and be witness to these little spirits' journeys as they're kind of experiencing human civilization for one of the first times. This deck has a lot of cheeks, so for example, Yellow Dragon for the bulldozer. I think it's neat. So I just wanted to show that match. Okay, so I'm sure there'll be an update on that later on. All right, next is going to be the deck that I am in love with, and it's the reason that I bought Land of the Giants. So I'll talk about the deck that I'm in love with first, and then I am going to just show you what it looks like next to Land of the Giants, because I haven't decided if it's a good match, but we'll see. So the deck I'm in love with is my Dream Enchantress Tarot. This is one of the first decks that I got this year that I just knew was like instant love. And what do I mean by that? I mean like not just a fling, but this deck shot up into my top 10 extremely quickly, like within 2 weeks. I was very certain that this had a place in my collection. I've used this deck to write poetry, and I find that it slots really well in there. The guidebook is really great. It has like a lot of really kind of juicy questions for you to pull on. I love the color tones of this. I am a Cancer, even though I don't oftentimes associate too much with that watery part of myself. And so I like to have a deck that's close by hand that feels like the balance between water, but also have a lot of air in my chart. So this reminds me a lot of air as well. Something about the way like the images are kind of like cutting and kind of sleek gives me that air energy. But I love this deck, and it's low scarabeo, so it's small enough to where I can actually fit it in my hands effectively. So let's see what it looks like next to Oracle of the Giants, since I did buy that to go together. I did edge this deck. Not sure if I love it. I think I need to go over it another time, but it's okay. It was only like the third deck that I ever edged. I'm still very new to all of this, so I think that's acceptable. So I'll put this guy in the middle. And I'll put Dream Enchantress on the side here. And I know that Dream Enchantress has a lot of blues, but I also feel like the blues kind of exist in the same spot as the pink. Dream Enchantress has a lot of people that are working with like little critters too. And so I thought the weirdness of these decks really matched well together. So let's see if we get some cards that demonstrate my thinking. So for example, this lady is riding this beetle. And so I just feel like that's kind of a natural fit for all of the creatures that are in the middle here. Look, we have like this weird flight situation, like we're riding this, we're flying on this, we're flying on this. I think the color tones match reasonably well. And I don't have any Oracle deck that matches with Dream Enchantress. So yeah, I think it was a good win. I think so. All right, so that was Dream Enchantress, the deck that I'm in love with, as well as Land of the Giants Oracle. All right, so the next prompt is deck I want. That is out of print, or a deck that I wish I existed. So I'm kind of doing a blend of that. So the deck that I want that is out of print is Delta Enduring. I am from South Louisiana. I would love that deck. If anyone is interested in selling that deck, please let me know. It is one deck that I would break the bank for, I'm not gonna lie. And I've bid a couple different times and almost won. As a matter of fact, there was a situation where I did win the bid, but because of the way the circumstances fell, someone else won the bid. I definitely won the bid. I was the last one to bid like before midnight, but someone else commented after me and they were the one that got the deck, and it is kind of is what it is. So there's been a couple chances where I've gotten like really close to getting Delta Enduring, but haven't been able to. So that being said, there is a deck that is coming up soon that my friend is creating, and he's from South Louisiana. He goes by the Cajun Conjurer, so I'll leave a link to his information below because people have been talking a lot about getting like a dupe for Delta Enduring for a long time. And so I think his deck is definitely worth sharing. He's been reading tarot for like so many years. I don't know the exact, but he's one of my tarot mentors in that kind of way. So he's going to call his deck La Fleur de Mystique, the Cajun Creole Tarot, and I have his permission to put some images up now. So as you can see, the deck is going to be created with this very folk artsy kind of style, and he has renamed most of the majors, most of the, I think actually all of the suits, and it's even going to include like Louisiana people from different areas of Louisiana in the court cards. So this is de Couillon, and Couillon basically means idiot in Cajun French, but it's said with a very loving tone. And so I think it makes just the perfect little fool, right? Like we all love a little fool. He's going to be a little bit stupid, but we love the fact that he chases his heart. And he is standing up here in the swamp, so it could be very easy for him to fall over, but who knows what he's getting into. Next, we have the Traiteur, and the Traiteurs are people from South Louisiana that are healers, and part of their practice is based in voodoo tradition, so it's part of that kind of conglomerate of faiths that exist in South Louisiana. And then the other part of it, the part that focuses on prayers and also as saints, comes from Catholicism. So the Traiteur here is cooking up some sort of healing for the people that come to him needing that help. So it's a beautiful image of the magician having those tools and the knowledge to help others. All right, and the last thing I'm going to show is the Four of Fiddles. This is actually the Four of Wands. So he's changed the wands to the fiddles because fiddles represent kind of the pulse of the music. And actually all of the suits are named after a particular instrument. The fiddles just happens to be the part that is like very pulsing in Cajun and Creole folk music. And so he wanted to include it for that. But I like this because it definitely looks like these individuals just had a bit of a celebration. They're sitting down. One person is still playing the fiddle. So the party keeps on going, even after a bit of it has been established. It looks like the practice is over and now it's just friends gathering together. So I'm really grateful that my friend is creating this deck. I'm going to leave a link in the description box below to everything that he has, because not only is he creating this tarot deck, but he is also wrote a couple books as well. So I'll leave a link in the description box below, but that's essentially like my most anticipated deck of 2025. I'm really looking forward to it, and it'll be my dupe for the Delta Enduring, which has been out of print for a while. So once again, his deck was called Les Fleurs de Mystique, the Cajun Creole Tarot, and it's by Cajun Conjurer. So ultimately, I am thrilled for his deck, and if y'all want to get the word out, please share what he is posting on social media. I definitely want him to share his deck with as many people as possible, because I really respect his knowledge of this area, and I want to share my culture that I too know and love. So as far as it goes, the next prompts are deeply kind of reflective, but not necessarily deck-based, which is one of the reasons that I thought this prompt was so great. So the next prompt asked me to identify my card of the year. And I didn't think through like what my favorite version of this card would be. So I'm going to pull a deck that I have next to me that I think fits it. And I am going to talk about this card. So I think my year was definitely a death year, without a doubt. Oh my God, it was a death year. There were so many new things that I tried this year, and so many different parts of me that I had to let go. I recently started therapy, and when I had asked what therapy was going to bring me, I pulled the world. And so I think that there are a lot of cycles in my life that are closing out right now that are incredibly healing. And in that way, I'm getting to see myself transform into a new individual, just like this spirit is transforming here. And so I think there were times in my life this year where I was really focused on what was holding me back. Hence, all of these people that are holding this spirit back or trying to like grapple with the idea that the spirit is kind of changing and evolving. And I think that I've had facets of myself that have tried to hold me back from that full evolution. But I've done a really great job of other times of the year focusing in on the new growth that is coming, and the growth that is red and it's hot and it's quite essential. So in that way, I felt a lot this year, kind of like molten lava, just like running all about and, in a sense, destroying the base that I built my life on so that I can rebuild. So it's definitely been a death card year for me. There have been moments of the Hanged Man, but I think between the Hanged Man and the death card, I'm finally moving into temperance. I'm starting to really reconcile a lot of different pieces of me that were shattered, I think, by that death. And it's been a good year. It's been a good year. I am not mad about it being a death card year, because I think we need years of tremendous change. And I think that's what this year was for me. Now, the next prompt is to reflect on my tarot practice. And I think that I'm trying to like think of some ways that I can do this kind of freeform and authentically. There we go. I had a hard time saying that word. I'm going to show y'all a deck while I do that reflection, just so I have something to do with my hands. So I'm going to show y'all Wild Radiance while I'm talking about how my practice has shifted. And I think she's a good example of how it shifted and how I've shifted. So like I mentioned before, I've been in this death period, and I think that this deck, which is Wild Radiance, kind of came to me in a way that significantly shifted my tarot practice. So a lot of the readings that I used to do were very focused on other people. I used the Zombie Tarot a lot for those interpersonal readings, and I had a lot of decks that I considered to be quote unquote like my counselor decks, the decks I went to when I needed support through those interpersonal connections. And this year, I found myself utilizing those decks less and less. I want to read less about the interpersonal relationships, and I want to, instead of like reading about them, just like do something to fix them or change them. And so I found myself not really using decks the way that I used to, the ways that I have used decks for years and years and years. And while I'm kind of going through and I'm embracing like this new bolder energy, I definitely found myself reaching for decks like Wild Radiance to help me tap into that personal power and especially that creativity. And so there was a moment in the summer that really dramatically shifted who I am at my core as a person. And I switched from being a lot more analytical and a little bit more nervous to kind of jumping right in. And I got this deck in the middle of Leo season. And I mean, damn, isn't it a Leo deck? There's pride in myself. There's pride in the work that I do. There's pride in other people. But for the most part, these individuals are kind of by themselves. And I think that's okay, because it's a reclamation of my own voice and my own narrative moving forward. And so I think that it's important to consider the decks that we bring in and like how we're using them. And I've spent a lot more time thinking about that this year, because when I find myself gravitating towards like Wild Radiance, even during like the cold winter months, what I am really gravitating towards is like that new version of myself that is reclaiming that voice. And I think tarot has really helped me shape that. And by utilizing and kind of thinking about the decks that I'm using at like certain times, I've been able to identify the stages of my life that I'm going through. And so that's been a new thing, is that now the decks have taken on like their own roles, so much so that I know that if a deck comes out, okay, I need to do that kind of work. But the work is more based in pride this year and creativity and kind of free flowing. I think my tarot practice became a lot more like playful this year. I mean, I've used tarot a lot to create art this year as inspiration for art pieces with my pressed flowers, with poetry, even to a certain extent to help me support like my content creation and then like my lesson plans. And so I think that in general, I've become a lot more of someone who I'm focused right now on like create. And I think that that's what's come from that death period. And I've been embracing decks that have helped me through that. So I think so, yeah, I think that's it. But I think I want to end this video with like just kind of in general what tarot means to me before I pull a new card for the coming year. I think that I've become a lot more accepting of people knowing that I read tarot this year. For a while, like that was kind of a big hang up in my head because, you know, I am a teacher. I live in the South, a very deeply Catholic area. And I think that like I'm starting to show like more subtle ways of myself and my spirituality and my beliefs, and just show up a lot more authentically. And I think part of that is from my experience within like YouTube as a whole. But it's also because tarot has given me that voice to be able to sit with myself. You know, I think that that's the beautiful thing about tarot, and that's something that I really learned about tarot this year, is that it helps you to not skip over the steps. We're going to sit in those steps, we're going to process them, we're going to make meaning out of them. We're not just going to skip over it and rush it because those steps are uncomfortable. So yeah, well, hopefully I'll listen back in recording and that makes sense. But I'm not going to kneecap it. I think I did say some things that were important for me to say there. So let's leave it at that. So let's see what the new card of the year is. And I'm going to pull from Wild Radiance because I don't want... This year was a death year that came with a lot of pain and a lot of issues and a lot of troubling. And if the death continues, then I'm good with that. But I want to see what Wild Radiance has to say. Ace of Wands. Wow. Okay, I can take that. Can I cheat? Because the Magician was on top too. I always look at the cards that are on like the top and the bottom. See, this is why I don't interpret cards on camera, because I think I get too emotional about them. So to go from the death year to the Ace of Wands to the Magician, I mean, what more can I need from that? You know, I had to go through these big transitional things so that I could have the energy and the enthusiasm and the creativity and the spirit pour through me so that I'm able to command that personal power. I think it sums it up. Ace of Wands for the year with a little touch of the Magician because she was on top. I'm feeling intimidated, but I can do that. I can do that. I guess it's time for me to move into that position. Okay, well, let me go before I start crying. So I want to go ahead and say thank you to everyone who has supported my channel this year. I really appreciate the likes, the comments, the shares. When y'all reach out to me on Instagram, it means the world to me. So I really appreciate being able to build this space with y'all and kind of co-creating it together. So it's been a good year. I started my channel at the end of March. It is the beginning of December, and I feel like it's just been the place where I need to be. So I hope that all of you have a wonderful day. Thank y'all so much. I appreciate y'all so much, and I'll see y'all next time.